have been in exile twice, once voluntarily, once just for escaping debt, let's put it like that. Still today, you are traveling. You told me 1/3 you are in the US, now a little bit more in Nigeria. How have you been coping with the fact that you are outside and away from your beloved and struggling for people that you are separated physically from? How have you dealt with that?
Well, that phase is over. I'm now totally domiciled in Nigeria, except, of course, when I travel to events like this. But basically, but during that time, I refused to accept the second one. I refused to accept that I was in exile. And I used to tell myself, oh, it's just a slightly prolonged political sabbatical, and it'll be over very shortly. And so wanting to get back kept me busy, mobilizing with other Nigerians how to combat and remove the dictator. I went to various places. I frequented Brussels, for instance, to talk to the members of the European Union. And
as a lobbyist? As a lobbyist?
Yes, as a lobbyist, and very often at their invitation. The European Union, as well as some other nations, were very positive. And each time Sani Abacha was sending his ministers on a propaganda message, they would send me a ticket to come and confront them here. So whether it's Brussels, whether it's London, whether it's the United States, Canada, African countries.
So you had a group
themselves.
ticket with Abacha? They always sent you and Abacha at the same time?
No. They always invited, once they heard that a ministerial delegation was coming, they would let me know. And sometimes they would even send a ticket and say that we know what this man is coming for, so could we have some members of your organization to come and counter them in the assembly? So that kept me very busy. I was almost on the move all the time. So I didn't have time, much as I, of course, from time to time, missed the smells, the people. I continued being
your family,
in Nigeria.
your children.
There came a stage when I had to smuggle them out too, through a very difficult operation through Benin border, overnight, wife, children, because Abacha was into hostage taking. You take the children and declare either journalists or activists wanted. So finally, I was advised to take them out. So we came out, and I settled briefly, very briefly, first in Britain, and then moved on to the United States. Mm-hmm.
Have you forgiven these leaders? I mean, I remember you writing in the Open Sore of a Continent very viciously about Buhari too. I mean, you call him with his man partners in terror, the stupid salvationist duo. You've been shaking hands with him when he's president.
Yes.
You called him, we should be mini Mandelas and forgive him.
The person who preceded Buhari was a disaster. As those who follow the news from Nigeria, with all the investigations, the revelations going on, will realize what we're confronted with in Nigeria. We were going solidly bankrupt. Even the alternative economy was running to the ground, and this was because of massive corruption. And then there was a form of conduct which, in fact, was making that democratic regime no better than a military dictatorship. I mean, many incidents. The soldiers were being unleashed. Again, lots of revelation coming out about how they colluded with the former government to completely subvert the democratic process. Names have been named, some have been thrown out of the military. It was disgusting. And then we had a parallel government in the shape of his wife, whom I called a hippopotamus. You know, it was an accurate description, because she was very greedy. And it's all coming out right now, so it's not just me talking. Now, Buhari, for me, committed an offense which I found very difficult to forgive, and that was the retroactive execution of some young people who were drug carriers. I thought that was really the limit. And also, I believed at the time that it's very difficult for a soldier. You cannot take the soldier out of even born-again Democrats. That was my fear at the time. And so when he contested 3 times, and each time I was totally opposed to him. But this time we were left with 2 choices: the massive corruption and the obvious potential looming bankruptcy of the nation, and then, on the other side, an individual who kept contesting, who felt that he'd been cheated in prior elections, and who I noticed was subjecting himself to party discipline, because I watched the whole process. And finally, I took the position that while I still could not come out openly for him, I felt a civic responsibility to ask the electorate not to vote for the incumbent. It was a very, very difficult situation for me personally. But there comes a time when I'm afraid you cannot sit on the fence. And that's what happened.
And are you happy for the future of Nigeria? Is it a good thing? I mean, you've got a famine going on in the northeast because of Boko Haram.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned Boko Haram, because that was the other thing which created that choice. 270-something school pupils were snatched under our noses. Not only were the Boko Haram people didn't just go to one school, we literally had assembled them. It was one of the centers for examination. So you had pupils from different states, all gathered for these rabid hyenas. It's like we fed them this human food. Those girls could have been recovered if action had been taken within even up to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, possibly a month. The government, the president, refused to accept the fact that these girls were missing. I mean, we're talking about 200 plus human beings gathered together in one compound. They disappeared. Some escaped. Their parents narrated what happened. The teachers said what happened. You had a president who said that nothing had happened. He had his wife who came out and was ordering the police and the soldiers to arrest those protesting and demanding action. And that person wanted to continue to be president of a nation. For me, this was worse. If one shouldn't compare negatives, but this was worse for me than even a wrongful execution. Because we send those girls to become sex slaves. I mean, it was obvious what was going to happen to them. To become slaves of Boko Haram. And business went on as usual, normal. For me, that president should have resigned immediately.
At least he stepped down peacefully, which
is
something.
He did that. That must be credited to him. He knew when his hour was up, and not even his wife could persuade him to stay. Thank you very much.